name is David Alvarado, principal here at Columbia High School. And on behalf of the schools, please join me, first of all, not only welcoming veterans we have, also.
Yeah. Yeah. Told you.
We'd also like to welcome our featured guest speaker this afternoon, who's going to share his inspirational hope, courage, and fighting through adversity. I will say this: you will meet people in your life at some point that have an impact on you. Our speaker this afternoon is one of those people. So you will find out here shortly. So with that being said, it is my honor to introduce veteran, patriot, and Purple Heart recipient, Mr. Dave Raver.
I take the mic too. Thank you, David. Oh my goodness, thank you. Thank you, students. Thank you very much. That's a pretty rousing. It means a lot to me to be here and to be in the presence of the that are part of this effort today, to come out and be part of your life and let you have an opportunity to show your appreciation. It blew me away, your response, standing and cheering for they're not just our heroes, but they're our national treasure. You have no idea what some of these people have been through in their service to this country to give you and me the freedom and the right to be in this room as free Americans with freedom of speech, press, religion, right to pursue happiness, and freedom of assembly together. Thank you, students, and thank you for the incredible show of respect you're giving right this second. In an auditorium, it's easier. In a gym, it's very difficult to focus because this is a place you usually go screaming, crazy, wild during a game. And then to come in and be quiet and reverent, thank you. You're showing me a lot of class right now, and I appreciate it. Give yourself a hand. That's okay to do that. Today, I am very honored to be with one of my best friends, a young man that I've been training for 5 years to be my successor in our corporations. We have 3 of them. And he is our face and voice of the future for our corporations. And he is a national treasure himself. His name is John Arroyo. He is a captain in the United States Army Green Beret. Would you welcome, come over here, John Arroyo. Welcome, John, would you?
All right, all right, all right. Man, Dave, I think we're in the right house. Man, this is probably one of the best schools that we're going to go to this week. I just want to thank you for an opportunity to speak with you, because for me, I just feel like not long sitting where you were sitting. And maybe like many of you, or maybe like I was, maybe some of you are going through some of the things that I was also going through. And you may question, well, what is that, John? Well, real briefly, I'm only going to take just a minute or so just to kind of tell you my story. Maybe it'll resonate with you, and then Dave will that. When I was 5 years old, my dad died of cirrhosis of the liver. I grew up never hearing my dad tell me, "You're my son in who I'm well pleased." So I chased after affirmation. And where do we go when we don't have father in our home? Well, for me, I went outside. I needed my friends to constantly affirm me. 7th grade, I'm jumped into a gang in Los Angeles. By 9th grade, listen to me. By 9th grade, I was a teenage father. By 12th grade, I'm doing methamphetamines. You want to know who introduced me to the methamphetamines? You want to know who introduced me to all the lifestyle? Well, some of it is because of me. But I was also wounded by people that I trusted. Some people that loved me were the ones that introduced me to the smoke, the hit, the this, the that. That some of my friends today have never recovered from because the people that told them they loved them introduced them to something that they never recovered from. But it happened once again. It didn't only happen when I was a young kid about your age. It happened again when I was in uniform. See, because of the gangs and the drugs, my sister one day told me, she said, "John, you need to get out of here. You're going to be the loser. You're going to be a loser the rest of your life." I said, "What am I going to do?" She said, "You need to join the military." I said, "I'm not doing that military stuff." You know what she would do when I was sleeping? She would pour water on me. So I don't know if you guys ever heard of waterboarding. My sister was waterboarding me on the couch. So I ended up going to the military because I needed to make something of myself. You know, every once in a while, and I'm sure that I want to tell you this, these teachers that are here, they see something in you that you don't see yet. See, when I was a young kid getting tattoos and into drugs, my sister saw something, my grandmother saw something that was inside of me. I like to say it's like that lump of coal, but inside there's a diamond. On the outside it's very black, but on the inside there's something shining, and there's someone that could see that something sparkling inside. And my sister and my grandmother, they saw it. Well, I told you that I was wounded twice by people that I've trusted. First were the people that loved me. And that was I'm going to briefly tell you, on April 2nd of 2014, after 16 years in the military as a Green Beret, chasing bad guys up mountains, hooding bad guys, landing on their doorstep in Iraq and pulling them out of their bed in the middle of the night. I've done the things that you would expect a special operator to do. I've done it. April 2nd, in my car, I hear shots fired. And the next shot, April 2nd of 2014, one of my friends, one of my soldiers, one of my brothers turned his weapon on 19 of us at Fort Hood military base. The second mass shooting on military base Fort Hood, I took a 45 through my throat by someone that I would have given my life for. But friends, here's what I want to tell you. If you noticed, the things that happened to me when I was a kid and the things that happened to me at Fort Hood, I didn't succumb to them. Diamond that I told you about that was in that lump of coal, there were people that saw something inside of me. When I was on the ground dying, someone said, "John, get up, because there's more for you to do. There's more for you to speak to. There's more for you to do. And I want you to take what happened inside, emotionally, mentally, and physically. You're going to be restored. And I want you to go and I want you to share with a bunch of young children and let them know that there's a bunch of diamonds out there. And they're going to be sitting in schools, and let them know that there's hope and healing and a future for them." And I'm John Arroyo. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John. Good job. Good job. Thank you, John. I want to thank Eric for your help today to get this into the classrooms too, buddy. Thanks for your assistance with the camera and the sound. Well, I'm going to first of all say thank you for letting me sit down to speak to you. I normally, throughout my career, and I've addressed over 8 million students in my career in public schools, but not always from a stool or a chair. But in 2010, I was in Iraq, and I jumped out of a helicopter and I hit wrong. And whenever I landed on my backside, I'll say, I broke 6 vertebrae and was paralyzed for 2 years. And they put in 12 screws and 2 rods. I'm an inch taller than I used to be for whatever reason. but I can't stand very long and I can't walk very far. So thank you for letting me sit, which means I'm going to really draw on your maturity. I'm going to draw on your patience to listen to a guy that does not move around when he's speaking. When you can move around and you're speaking, you're a lot easier to listen to. So thanks for your attention in a difficult situation and in the gymnasium. I'm going to start by saying there's a lady here named Jill that has a dog over here that's a beautiful, beautiful animal. Miss Jill is one of your counselors. Your counselors and your teachers are a priceless gift to you. And I want you to know that today I support 100% the effort by this school reaching into your community to give you not only an education, but a place that's safe in a world that is growing more unsafe every day. Thank you, teachers and administrators, principals, superintendents, all of you. Thank you for doing what you do. And these students want to say thank you as well. Put your hands together for your teachers and administrators. Thank you, folks. Thank you for all you do for us. Now, when I was in school, I thought my teacher came to school and parked her broom right outside the door. But I didn't know the gift that I had in my teachers. Now I'm older and I look back and I see the gift they implanted into my life. Not only teachers, but I was among the most privileged in the world. There's talk about privilege, white privilege, or any other privilege. I'm going to tell you the privilege I had. I had a mom and dad that loved me. Had nothing to do with color, had nothing to do with race, had nothing to do with gender. It had everything to do with love. A mom and a dad that loved me. Most of you, and I mean that by a huge majority, most of you have the greatest parents in the world. Some of you just wish you had some parents. And that brings me to a statement that I think you should hear from my lips. Life is not fair. I didn't ask for the damage that my body would go through, not about Iraq and jumping out of a helicopter and hitting wrong. I'm talking about many years before in a war that I did not start and one that I in no way ended, but it almost ended me. But in Vietnam, I would face the death angel and get to be on first name basis with that sucker because I had parents that taught me resiliency. Today, I'm a resiliency trainer in the Comprehensive Soldier Fitness Program for the United States military in all 4 branches. I am employed as a DOD contractor, DOD, Department of Defense contractor, and I travel the world in Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Oman, Qatar, United Arab Emirates, Afghanistan, Iraq, Bosnia, Kosovo, Syria, North Africa, South Korea, Japan, Okinawa. If there are troops there, they help stop this gushing hemorrhaging of a blight called suicide. I know well the feeling that takes a person to the brink, and I think it was Kierkegaard. I may be wrong in my recollection there, but I think it was. If you stare into the darkness too long, the darkness will stare back into you. Don't let the darkness stare into you. Don't listen to that dark music or hang with people that are all. Listen to the light and the life and the joy that life has to offer you. Focus on the affirmative. Accentuate the positive, as someone said. Live your life with joy, not with, he said, but Mr. Reeve, you don't know what I go through at home. Listen to me and listen well. Everybody gets hurt. I'm going to say it again. Everybody gets hurt. That's not the question. The question in life is when you get hurt, how are you going to deal with it? You're going to shake your fist in somebody's face and blame them. You can do the blame game all your life. It's not who hurt you. It's how you respond to it that's going to make the difference. In July of 1969, yes, right after the War of 1812, for you little guys that think 69 is a long time ago, these veterans out here know what 1969 means. It was a bad year in America. It was a year that the war in Vietnam peaked in the 1968, what was called Tet Offensive. The following months after that Tet Offensive in 68 were the worst years and months of war in the Vietnam horror experience of this nation. There are Vietnam veterans in this room right now that I had the incredible privilege to meet. All of the veterans are an incredible privilege to meet, but it's really special when I get to meet some of the folks that have been down the same road, and in my case, the same river I've been down. I was raised by a mom that was invalid. When I was born, she almost died, never did recover. In fact, to tell you that she raised me is almost a misnomer because she couldn't raise me. We had a Mexican nanny named Maria Rubio. She lived in Matamoros, Mexico, and I was born in McAllen, Texas, right next door to a city called Brownsville, which is in the news regularly today with dealing with the immigration problem that's taking place in South Texas. I was born there. I grew up there. My first language, being that I had a Mexican nanny, my first language was Spanish. I didn't learn English till I was 6 years old. Then they told me I was not a Mexican. Blew my Hispanic mind. I thought I was Mexican, and it was my first time to come in contact with a concept. Now listen carefully what I'm saying. And understanding that I was not what I thought I was. Anytime you come in your lifetime to a point that you're not what you thought you were, that moment of self-discovery judging emotionally. When I found out I was not what I thought I was, they told me that I cried for weeks as a little boy because I was a Mexican. I didn't. To this day, I think I'm still more Mexican than I'm anything else, but I love my heritage. And here's the rest of the story. That discovery that I'm not what I thought I was would follow me, and the experiences that would bring me to again and again discover I was not what I thought I was would benefit me because I started out as a child understanding that. As an adult, it's really difficult to discover you're not what you thought you were. I would discover that more as I grew up and fell in love. I was 16 years old. I fell in love with my junior high school sweetheart. Oh, dude, it was real. I was in love. I asked her to marry me. She slapped me. That was real too. It hurt. She said, I'm only 13 years old. I said, but you have the body of a 14-year-old. She slapped me again. That was disrespectful and I deserved it. But I really, honest to God, I really loved that girl. And her dad was also an influence in not getting married. His name was Mr. Smith in Wesson. Never mind. But he said, if you'll wait till she graduates, we'll talk about it then. She said, if you'll wait till I graduated, we'll talk about it then. I said, why wait? Let's get married now. I was possessed with the urge to merge, and she was not. So I cooled my jets, and I waited, and we got married. I'm really going to blow your mind right now. I'm going to lose this audience in the next statement. We were both virgin when we got married. You can clap. Oh, thank you. "54 years later, we're still married, but we're not still virgin." I just thought I'd throw that in there. And now, I'm going to blow your mind the other way. A few months ago, COVID took my sweet wife away from me, and she died. She's the only girl I ever loved. And I miss her. But I'm okay, and I'm not emotional. I'm allergic to the wax they put on this floor. Makes my eyes water. But students, I have a wish, and I wish my wish could come true, that every one of you could find somebody in your life that you loved as much as we loved each other, for as long as we loved each other. And you could come to the end of that long, wonderful relationship with memories as sweet as I have. She was an amazing girl. When I kissed her goodbye and I went to war, I didn't mean to take her into the world that I would go into. In fact, I had no desire to even serve in the military. My father was a minister and I wanted to be like my dad. I didn't care about football. I loved it. I played it, but football players were not my heroes. They never bled for me. They made me pay to go watch them have fun. Why should I worship a basketball player because he can slam dunk? He never bled a drop for my freedom. They're great and they're fun to watch, but they're not my heroes. Heroes to me are people that love me more than they love themselves and would lay down their life for me. That's why I respect and honor our veterans today. My dad was my hero. He loved my mom when she was invalid and couldn't even show her love for him or any of us. She couldn't speak. She couldn't respond. After a number of years after I was born, she lost all communication ability. And yet my dad was faithful to her irrevocably. You could not turn his eyes to another woman. He was the most faithful man I ever knew. He was my hero. So I grew up with a hero that was not in uniform. And whenever I got the draft notice to go take my physical, which I wrote back and said, I feel fine, thank you for asking, they insisted I take. Appreciate that. It was the only exam I passed that whole semester of college, which is why I was being drafted to start with, because my grades were below sea level. Did you get it? Oh, come on, that right there is funny. I don't care who you are. They told me I'd be inducted in the Army. You know what I did? I didn't want to get hurt in the military, so I went out and joined the Navy. I've never been on a ship yet. They put me in a place called NAB, Naval Amphibious Base, Coronado, California. I trained with the Navy SEALs, and I was a brown water black beret. Let me say it again, brown water black beret. They changed the name recently, and now we're called Special Boat Teams. I was a captain on what's known as a PBR, River Patrol Boat, and I carried SEAL Team 1 on the fastest boats in the world to war. We had the highest killed in action, KIA, in the war per capita. But you can't prove it. Because if your body goes down with a boat, and our bodies, exclusive of my own, when killed, went down with the boats because they were made of fiberglass. And the weapon used against our fiberglass boats was a B-40 anti-tank rocket-propelled grenade. Anti-tank. Bubba, that's to blow up tanks that are steel 3 inches thick. And this is blowing up a riverboat made of fiberglass 1/2 inch thick. The boats always them. And if they do not recover a body, even though they know you're dead, you're not listed KIA, killed in action. You're listed as MIA, missing in action for many years to follow. You're MIA. So when I was at the airport with my little junior high school sweetheart, my dear little teenage wife, she said to me with tears on her beautiful little cheek, Davy, are you coming back? I said, I'll be back without a scar. And when I said it, I felt a chill up my spine because I knew I just made a promise I could not keep. And I can still, to this day, honest to God, students, I can still taste the salt of her tears on my lips. And I walked away thinking I just lied to the most precious person in my life. I'll never see her again. I got on that airplane and went to a war that would take her handsome young prince and change him into a freak and a monster that would come home and could not be identified as her husband. On July the 26th, 1969, after 8 months in war, I took my first injury. On the 23rd, 3 days later, I'm back on the river after a relatively minor injury to discover on the 26th I would take an injury that would leave me devastated the rest of my life. And here's the story. We beached the boat on the bank of a river called the Vam Cote, right on the border with Cambodia, deep in the jungle of Vietnam. Literally a dark place. Literally, the jungle was so thick. I reached down and I picked up a white phosphorus hand grenade, and I'm standing in the forward gun tub riverboat now. And again, later, called more modern version of the same boat. I'll pull the pin on a grenade. The gentlemen and the ladies in this room that have served in the military will tell you I'm not exaggerating or lying. White phosphorus is devastating. I've been told, though I've never measured it on a thermometer, it burns at 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit, twice the heat necessary to melt the engine out of your car. I pulled the pin, drew it back. I was going to burn down some high brush, detonate booby traps, put up smoke, anything that would give me a little edge, because my job was to go down in that bunker and that hole in the ground we called spider holes, to go in that hole and bring out the enemy alive. I didn't want to kill him. I didn't want to be killed by him. I wanted him alive because a dead man can't talk. I went and pulled the pin and drew back. That was the last official act of war I would perform. A sniper across the river put me in his crosshairs, and he pulled the trigger. Shooting at my head, he missed. The bullet went through the back of my hand, hit the grenade, and it exploded right beside my face. You do not have to have a pin, a striking needle. You don't have to have a firing pin, as I said, or any kind of fuse. If phosphorus is exposed to oxygen, to air, atmosphere, it explodes in what's known as, I'll put it this way, spontaneous combustion is a word used in your chemical classes. It will spontaneously combust with full force explosion. And the grenade blew right here. That's why everything that's not covered was blown off to the bone. I looked down, I could see my heart beating. I looked further down, I saw my face laying on my boots. I went instantly blind in my right eye and deaf in my right ear. Everything came off, students. I'm not exaggerating. I got my vision back now. During COVID, a little over a year ago, I went in for surgery on my right eye. And after all these years, are you ready? It's a big miracle to me. They took off all that scar tissue and found out I can still see with that eye. I see with both eyes perfectly right now. That is awesome. That is awesome. Wonderful. So 5 years ago, they rebuilt my whole face. They actually took me into Brooke Army Medicals. I've had 61 surgeries. I've got 2 more on the books for this year, trying to put old Humpty Dumpty back together again. But 5 years ago, surgery number 50 through 60, 10 surgeries in the last 5 years. They made me a nose. I didn't have a nose for 5 years. I have a nose. Isn't it cute? It's a boy. I'm so proud of it. They made me eyelids. They made my lips back. I have an ear. It's plastic. I don't want it to be real. I have more fun with a plastic ear than I ever had with my real ear. I'm going to leave my ear here. I'm going to listen to what you say about me when I'm gone. That's what I'm going to do. Some of you look at me like, I think he has brain damage. I do not have Dane Bramage. Never mind. I got my hair back. Well, I bought it. I'm proud of it. There's a bald guy in China. I got his hair. Well, it's made in China. So I guess he's bald. My hand was severed in half. The only finger that works is this one. These 3 fingers and thumb don't work, but then you make a good mic stand. You can adjust it. See that? My left thumb was blown off. They made that out of my hip. I don't suck my hip. Come on now, that's funny. You can laugh with me. If you're in junior high, you really like my humor. I got my vision back, got my hearing back. I'm just trying to tell you, students, I may be shot up, blown up, burned up, messed up, but I'm up and at 'em. Nobody is going to push me down. I'm going to live my life and be all every day loving people and being loved by. Oh, yeah. every day. So the grenade blew. I jumped off the boat into the water. You ready for a shocker? Phosphorus in water. I was boiling the water like the heating element in a teapot. My skin was floating all around me. I was beside myself. That's hilarious. Come on, you can laugh with. I needed to pull myself together, didn't I? A helicopter landed to pick me up. I'm on my knees. I'm on the bank of the river. I looked at the damage, and the artery in my right shrapnel or the bullet or something went south and cut into my artery. And I could look at my heart, it would beat, and then blood would spray out like a flag out of my hand. I was bleeding to death, and the phosphorus that was burning me up got down in that hole and cauterized that artery, sealed it off, and I didn't bleed to death. The thing that was killing me is now saving my life. It's the craziest paradox you could ever imagine. And I fell over, overwhelmed me. That's when they all got happy. It's a crazy thing to say. They had a body to prove I was KIA. They thought I died. It went all the way to the Pentagon through my chain of command. My warrior friends here all know what I'm talking about, chain of command. It went through my chain of command at that moment that I was KIA with a body to prove it. But when the helicopter landed, they call that a dust off. They landed the dust off. They rolled me on a stretcher. They took off running for the helicopter. I'm still burning. Phosphorus is not extinguished by water. I'm still burning. The stretcher caught fire. It ripped open. I fell out on my head. You ever have one of those days? Nothing went right. They rolled me up in wet blankets, got me in the helicopter, and away we went. Now, notice what's not being said. You've not heard me say one thing about how bad it hurt to be burned. You know why? From the moment of the explosion, jumping off the boat, swimming across the river, on my knees, falling over backwards, put me on the stretcher, burned through the stretcher, get me in the helicopter, I felt nothing. I had no pain at all. I was in shock, but I never passed out because the water I jumped into, that river, forced consciousness on me, but I never passed out. But in the helicopter, when they took off, the reality replaced the shock and the pain hit. There is no word in any language I've ever heard, and of the three I speak, I cannot find a word in those languages to describe what it feels like to be half your body engulfed in 5,000 degree Fahrenheit heat. There's no words. Scream. I'm rolled up in blankets now. Get the picture. The doors are open. It's always hot in Vietnam. So the doors on the helicopter are open. The pilot is flying the airplane, the co-pilot to his left, and the medic is sitting over here at the right, which just a little, have these little tubes that are about, 3 inches long, and a needle with a cap over it, and that tube is full of morphine. And it's emergency combat medicine for pain. And what you do, you break that little cap off, and it's got the needle, and you jam it in your leg, and you squeeze the morphine out of that tube, and it helps you survive the pain. My medic took the cap off, jammed it in his own leg, and squeezed. That turkey, I think we jostled at just the wrong time, and he missed my leg under the blanket. But the fact is, when I screamed, medic, he screamed. He thought the dead came to life. He almost jumped out of the helicopter. The pilot lost control. We're dropping like a rock. Oh, Lord, we're going to crash, and I'm going to be the only survivor. And they got me to Saigon, which was the capital of South Vietnam. And then they flew me on a big jet to a place called Japan, Yokohama, Japan. Here's where everything changes in the story. My friends have said to me over the years, Dave, that day in Vietnam on the bank of that river had to be the worst day of your life. It was a bad day. I won't deny it. Beyond words, I don't know how to describe that bad day except this. There are things that are worse. You see, that day on the bank of the river, I swam because I wanted to save my life. I was trying to stay alive. But in Japan, I did something terribly wrong. I asked them to bring a mirror, and they held it over my face, and I looked up in the glass, and I didn't just see a body burned. I didn't see a face that they were breaking off in chunks of charcoal. What I saw was a broken promise to a little teenage girl that I was willing to die for because I loved her so much. I saw a broken promise. What I did wrong cannot be measured in wrong. It's beyond wrong. I tried to kill myself because I was afraid that I might live and they would show me to her, but I knew that they would never open a casket and show scripture. I had no gun. I had no knife. How do you kill yourself? I pulled the tube out and I laid my head back and I waited to die. And I got hungry. It was the wrong tube. I pulled out lunch. That wasn't my life dripping on the floor. That was my lunch. If you smell a pizza at that point, you don't want to kill yourself. You want to plug that tube back in, right? I didn't want to die. Listen to me, students. I beg you. Listen. No matter how dark, no matter how difficult, no matter what you overheard your parents say, no matter what you overheard another student say, no matter what you read online when some idiot tells you, go kill yourself, don't listen to that junk. Your parents divorced, that's their problem. You didn't make it happen. They chose. Don't ever blame yourself for your parents' decisions. Like I said, 99% of you have the greatest parents in the world. Some of you just wish you had some peace at home. She was 15 years old when she stepped up to me one day. Permian Basin High School, Odessa, Texas. Mister, she said, I got to talk to you alone. I said, I don't talk to girls alone, but if you get your counselor, Jill, if you get your counselor, I said, we'll talk. And so we went to the counselor's office and we sat down. And before I was even seated, our desks were placed face to face. Before I was even fully seated, she just blurted out, my stepfather raped me 3 times. I'm going to kill him. Hey, people, I've been around long enough to know the difference in a threat and a promise. This was no threat. But I said to her, I said, whoa, hold everything. Before you make another statement, you have to know. You've just informed me of a violation against a minor in a facility that's funded by federal funds. And if this is true, this has to be given to authority. She said, it's true, mister. It's true. This is hard for me to talk about. And I don't. But one of the key lessons in counseling is you don't touch a teenage client. Number 3, you don't touch a teenage client of the opposite sex. You just don't do that. But she reached across the desk and she wiped the tears off my face. And she said, nobody's ever cried for me. Next thing I know, I'm throwing my arms around her and she's patting me on the back saying, it's okay, mister, we have a counselor. I'm not here for me. I'm independently wealthy enough I don't have to work another day of my life. It isn't, I'm looking for something to do. I'm here because some of you look on the inside like I am on the you're broken, bruised, and I'm here to tell you, you can survive it. Don't quit. Hang in there. Don't go to your fellow student. They're your friends, but they're like what we call in the military barracks lawyers. They know all the rules. Yeah, they'll get you down the road. They get you kicked out of the military. Your student friends are wonderful, but they don't have any more gray around the temple than you do. Seek out that oldest teacher. You know what I mean? Seek out that teacher with history, that teacher with experience, that teacher that's shown you love. that counselor, that whoever, seek them out and don't be too proud to ask for help. Am I meddling where I don't belong? I didn't come to do that. I came to tell you you're worth whatever it takes to make you get through these days with joy instead of sadness, with expectation instead of disappointment. You're not only the future, students, you're the present. We love you and we care about you. And we know some of you are hurting. Suicide is not your solution. I'm glad I pulled the wrong tube. I'm glad it failed, or I would never have been in this awesome school in a gymnasium with the most honoring, gifted, considerate students in all the state of Ohio. How's that for kissing up? I love you. God, I love you. My word. So I gotta check my time. How am I doing here? I got a few minutes. Help me out, Dr. Schreier. If I get about 10 minutes, let me know. All right. So to conclude, I want to tell you what happened next. They got me to America, and they landed it's a big jet, hospital jet. They landed it at Lackland Air Force Base, San Antonio. And then they flew a helicopter over and they put me on a stretcher and flew me from the jet. They flew me over to Brooke Army Hospital. It's called BAMC, Brooke Army Medical Center in San Antonio at Fort Sam. And then they took me in to a room called debridement. I'm going to really try to make this work because in a moment I'm going to have to stand up to illustrate it. And I hope I don't fall over. We're going to make it happen. They put me in this room called debridement. That's when they put you in a tank. It's called the Hubble tank. And it's got about 8 or 10 inches of water. And your body displacement will push the water up. And when you lay in it, the water will come up to your face, but not cover your mouth and nose so you can still breathe. And then they splash that water onto your charcoal body. Half my body was charcoal. The other half was a combination of second and first degree. But from the waist up, I was third degree. And when they start splashing that water on that charred flesh, it softens it. And I don't want to make you sick. So please hold on with me for a few words that are very difficult to say and very difficult to hear. They fillet your body. They literally fillet you. They skin you alive. And they can't put you to sleep because they have to do this twice a day, every day, for many days until they get all the dead skin off. Because if they don't get the dead skin off, it rots and it will become gangrene. And if it gets systemic, you'll die. Your kidneys cannot purify that blood and you will die. So they have to work fast and furiously to get as much skin as they can off before you go insane. Well, they were cutting on me when I reached up. And of the 6 attendees, one of them, thank you, sir, I got 2 minutes. One of those attendees, her hair was a little longer than the others. I tangled my fingers in her hair and I flipped that girl into the tank with me and I had her head down in the water. I was trying to drown her because I thought she was trying to kill me. And I have to say it again, I was temporarily insane. It drove me insane. The pain was worse than anything I'd ever known. And I was fighting for my life. Well, 5 other attendants had her out of that water immediately. But when I looked up, my skin was in her hair. And her white uniform was pink with my diluted blood. I didn't know what to say. I was humiliated and embarrassed. And then they said, I think he's had enough. And I repeated, I think he's had enough. And they got me out and they put me on a gurney. And they were pushing me from this tank to a room we called death row. Death row, because 13 of us were in there. We were all there to die. They didn't want us dying on the main ward because it discouraged other patients. So they wanted us to die separated so we could discourage each other to death, I guess. The sad news is you're looking at the only one who lived. Everyone died. Everyone died. But that first day, as they were pushing me down to death row, the ICU. And you know what ICU means. That's that when they give you that robe that doesn't come together in the back, it's called the ICU. And it's very embarrassing. That's when I fully understand what the Army meant when they called it the draft. You appreciate that, Colonel. Anyway, they pushed me to, and the medic said, now listen to what he told me. In the morning at 8:30, we're going to do this again. I looked at him and I said, not you and the entire United States Army is big enough to put me back in that tank. That sounds like a lot of bravado, but hear why I said that. Would they put a dead body in that tank? No, they would not. Why would they? If you're dead, forget it. See, I was still, listen to these words, I was master of my own destiny. In Japan, I'd already tried to kill myself. I failed. Now I'm thinking before they can ever do this to me again, I will not fail. I will kill myself before they can ever hurt me like that again. And he said, why are you so concerned? I said, because now I'll be awake all night with anxiety attacks, knowing hell's coming on a blue draped gurney to take me to the pit. And at 8:30 the next morning, I was right. I heard that gurney coming down that hall. It had a wobbly wheel on it like a Walmart shopping cart. And I knew pain was ahead. They rolled it up beside my bed and they forgot the wheels. You know what's about to happen. They got on each end of my bed, grabbed the blue sheet, and on 1, 2, 3, swung me over. Well, the guys on the foot end lost control of their hand grip, dropped me, and when I hit, the gurney not having wheels locked, separated. And when I saw it separate, I threw out my arms. I'm trying to hold the head of the bed and the head of the gurney together, but my feet went through and hit the ground and just jarred me like a baseball bat in the head. And I'm holding on for dear life because I wasn't the man I thought I was. I can take this, I can take that. You're not going to do this, you're not going to do that. I'll kill myself. I'm master of my own destiny. I was not master of my destiny. I was in the total, complete care of somebody else. And that somebody else showed up. Listen to what happened next. He was probably 6'7". That's pretty tall. 350 pounds, I estimate, of nothing but solid muscle. When he moved, cannonballs popped up on his chest and arms and shoulder. He was bald, he was black, and his name was Rosie. Honest to God, it was tattooed right there on his arm, Rosie. He put an arm like a forklift under the back of my head. I stiffened my neck. And instead of falling through the cracks of those beds, he had one arm under me, and then he reached with his other arm and picked up my whole body. I was a feather in his arms. He never flinched or grunted or groaned. He turned. No gurney for Rosie. He hand carried me down that long, long corridor into that debridement room and lowered me into that pit called. They tore into me, stripping and cutting and filleting, getting dead skin off me. I looked over, and that giant of a man had those giant of arms folded against that giant chest. And that black ebony skin reflected the beauty of a sunrise that morning as tears traced down his cheek like little streams of fire. His lips were moving. Rosie was praying for me. Honestly, I just relaxed because somebody was in that room that cared about me. And when I relaxed, the people that were doing all the scissors and cutting and filleting, they thought I died. On when it hurt, I played possum. Play dead, they leave you alone. And they said, Rosie, come. And he reached down in that filthy mire of blood, water, and skin. And he picked up my body, and they took terry cloth and dried off his arms and dried my skin. And he held me. And here's where I'm going to have to, and for the sake Eric, I'm going to try to help you. I'll hold both mics, but I can't talk about this without illustrating it. And we're going to try to walk. Here we go. Are you ready? He's carrying me, and these are his words as he walked. You'll be fine, big man. You'll see. You'll be fine. You'll be fine, big man. You'll see. You'll be fine. 2 times, 3 times, 4 or more. You'll be fine, big man. You'll see. He got me to that intensive care ward, that death row. He lowered me against that air mattress and extracted those forklifts. And he bent down and did something I never let a man do. He kissed my forehead. He looked me in the eyes. I looked in there and I the sun, the moon, the stars, Jupiter, Mars. Who is this man, Rosie? He said it again. You'll be fine, big man. You'll see. You'll be fine. Then he walked away. And I'm walking pretty stinky good right now. I'm going to just keep walking. Why am I telling you this story? If I stopped right there, it's a pretty good story to tell. The best is yet to come, as Paul Harvey used to say. And I want you to hear this. 20 years later, that's 33 years ago from now, but 20 years later, I was speaking for the Air Force Air National Guard. I was speaking at Redmond Field in Oregon for the 4th of July event celebration. 20,000 people came to hear me that day. I'll never forget this as long as I live. She stepped up out of the crowd when it was over. She was dressed in a very fine business suit, short cropped hair, a little salt and pepper we call it. She was older than me. She said, "You're Dave, aren't you?" I said, "Yes, I am." She said, "That's your nickname." She said, "Your real name's David." Well, like it's not Bartholomew. She said, "Your first name's Milton." Whoa. How'd she know that? She said, "Your name's Milton David Reaver, R-O-E-V." I said, "Yes, that's me." "Who are you?" She said, "I'm the nurse you pulled into the tank 20 years ago." I blushed. Yes, scar tissue can blush. I said, "I'm sorry." She laughed. She said, "No apology needed. I thought it was you, but I didn't recognize you with your clothes on." And then I remembered Rosie. And I said to her, "Do you remember a guy named Rosie?" It's like I hit her with a 2x4. She blinked, staggered, and she said, "I haven't thought of him in years." I said, "Do you know where he is?" She said, "I have no idea." I said, "I'm looking for him. I can't find him." I said, "Do you know where he came from?" She said, "I don't know." I said, "When did he come to Brooke Army Medical Center?" She said, "When you came." I said, "When did he leave?" She said, "When you left." All my religious friends tell me he's an angel. I don't know about that because I don't know what angels are like. But if he was an angel, he's on some assignment. Well, what if he was just a man who cared more about others than he cared about himself, showed up on a burn ward to assist people that couldn't help themselves. He carried me where I could not go on my own. He prayed when I couldn't pray for myself. He loved me when I hated myself enough to kill myself. And he spoke words of encouragement as he carried me. What if he was a man on a mission, not some angel on assignment? What if you understood today that I came to this school, not because I think I'm good or bad, sometimes think I'm ugly. What if I'm here because I just want to be a Rosie to somebody in this room that's going through the darkest moment of your entire life. You've been hurt, you've been abused like a little 15-year-old girl in Odessa, Texas. Or some boy that's been up against something you never dreamed would happen to you. And if I could come here today and say to you, I love you and I care about you, and if I can make it, you can make it, then I succeeded in my mission. And there's one last thought. Could you consider being a Rosie to somebody today? Instead of putting them down, lift them up. Instead of giving them a hard time, show them a good time and be a friend. It's been my incredible, beyond words, honor to speak to the finest students I could ever hope to. Thank you. I love you, David. You got them both. Thank you.
Let's give Mr. Rager one more round of applause for his inspirational work. Okay, before we dismiss, let's first